You're listening to the Reflections on Resilience podcast, hosted by me, Rehmat Rayatt. This 3-part series provides a space for members of Hounslow's community to share their experiences of loneliness, isolation, and hope through the COVID-19 pandemic. The aim is to create connection between residents through the vulnerability and courage of sharing our stories, and we hope you, our listeners, find solace and affinity in the shared experiences you'll find here. Listen on to hear from Katarzyna, Kulraj and Margaret. This podcast begins with a reading of Tier 4, a poem written by Margaret during the pandemic.
Trapped inside this box, deep, dark, black, outside the window. Surrounded by others in different sized boxes, but they are invisible, inaudible. This box is isolated, unnoticed by others, unvisited, unheeded in the middle of nowhere. The chilling news of Tier 4 circles round my mind like a Victorian zoetrope. My mouth dries as my eyes moisten. How can this be? Midnight. The invisible key has just turned in the invisible lock. My imprisonment is now legal and complete. Pleas for mercy will not be allowed, and there's no such thing as bail. Your box is your box. No one can hear you scream in this space, and brief encounters may occur via a screen, but there will be no contact, no touch, no hug, no physical connection. In just 2 words, disappeared.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. That is such a powerful poem. I'm really, really grateful to have you all here with me in this conversation. And I invite you all to introduce yourselves. So I'll start. My name is Rehmat and I am primarily a visual artist. So I had my training in photography. I did a degree in photography and moved into filmmaking during that process. And for the last kind of 10 years, I've been working within photography and film. And interestingly, in the last, I would say 3 or 4 years, I've been moving more into emotional well-being and mental health. So I started by delivering creative photography and filmmaking workshops. And then I began to bring in conversations about mental health because I realized how connected creativity is with mental health. And so that's been my journey. And a few years ago, I did my yoga teacher training and have moved even more into kind of mindfulness, yoga, all of that kind of world. So that's my background. And I really love the work that I do. And I love that it enables me to do things like this and meet people from the community and just connection. Connection is what all of my work is based on. So that's me.
So hello, I'm Kulraj. I am currently training as a psychotherapist in psychodrama. So that's currently what I'm doing as a studying, but I also run 2 community-based companies. One is Tell Be Told Theatre and the other one is the Positive Movement Project. And kind of the main focus of all the work that I do is for the community and trying to help people and tell people stories and ultimately help people feel good and feel better about themselves. So that's kind of my aim, and that's what I'm trying to do with all my work, and making connections too is something that I aim to do as well within all of that.
Hi everyone, my name is Katarzyna. I'm full-time mom, accountant, bookkeeper. This is like what I'm doing to earn. But I'm the charity worker as well. So I'm doing the community work, helping people. I'm running the Polish-British Social Integration Club Wawel. It's quite a long name, but this is social club directed to help Polish and other members of community to integrate here in Great Britain. So we're running the community projects, we taking part as a club to the social events. And and I am mom of 2 boys, wonderful kids, which one of them is autistic. So I'm connected with a disabled part of the Hounslow community. I'm cooperating as well with autistic club in Hounslow. So yeah, this is me.
Hi, my name's Margaret, and I'm sort of at the end of my working life because I retired a year ago, and I'm going to have one of those awful landmark birthdays next month, which means I'll be 65, which is a bit of a shock. So I retired a year ago. My working life, I started out as a teacher with music as a main subject. Then I left and poddled around trying to decide what I was going to do when I grow up. And then I've had roughly 20 years working in mental health in one way or another, not as a nurse or as a professional, but in sort of allied workshop running. And I helped set up a recovery college. And I've also worked in the wellbeing network in Hounslow when I was working. My personal experience is that I live alone, and I have battled with depression really on and off since I was 17. So I'm rather over familiar with the ups and downs of that. I have a number of interests. Photography, I'm keen on nature photography, macro. I've recently done some creative writing, and I ride a recumbent trike, which is a 3-wheeled bike, which is so comfortable. It's like sitting in an armchair with your legs out in front of you. So that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I wonder if we could also do a check-in. So the way that check-ins work are that we will choose a theme, and we'll use that theme to describe where we're at today, how we're feeling today. So I can start. So the theme that I've chosen is the weather, because the weather, as we know, even from today, is constantly changing. It's never the same for very long here in the UK. And so that's the theme that I've chosen, because for me it relates with emotions and feelings really well, because sometimes they feel like they're going to last forever, and often they don't, and they kind of change, and you can feel so many different things at the same time, which reminds me of the weather that we've had today with the rain and the wind and a bit of sun and all sorts. So essentially talking about the weather and then using that to describe how you're feeling right now. Let's just take a moment just to have a think.
I think I would say I'm feeling unsettled, which weather-wise today, it's sunshine, it's clouds, it's short, sharp showers, it's still quite windy. So it's all sort of taking its turn to influence the light and the day. Unsettled, I think, for a number of reasons. Partly I slept badly, and then I drove a friend to hospital. She's having chemotherapy, so I had to take her for some tests and things, and that's all a bit up in the air all the time about what's happening next. And I think also a bit of stress over technology before we started. So I thought I was all cool, calm, everything was sorted, and typically it wasn't. It decided to go upside down. And I think also it's very uncertain still. We will come out of lockdown, but how fast and what's going to happen next, I don't know. I'm desperate to see my friends in South Africa, and I have rebooked my tickets, but who knows whether it will happen. And my little cat has got something wrong with her that we can't get to the bottom of, so that's another. Everything's all a bit light, bit dark, bit windy, bit quiet, bit noisy. I'm moving around and flapping and trying to keep my feet on the ground in the middle.
How I feel now, very closely to the weather, which is today. So windy, heavy rain, clouds, and sometimes sunshine is going through these clouds. So mix of feelings, and basically, we are uncertain still what will happen and when. For me, I can wait some time for things to come. I'm patient person, but I need to have deadline. For me, if I have date, I'm waiting for this date. Now we're very uncertain and we can't really plan anything, which is causing a lot of distress for me, because I always have like long-term plan for whole year, like main dates, and I'm building my life around these dates. So even now when we are still in lockdown, I already booked my venue for some community events, hoping that we will be free to do the events. But yeah, positivity, I'm trying to be positive and hope for better, but yeah, the cloud's still there.
If I was to describe myself as a sort of weather, I would say a big fluffy cloud. I find that I have a lot of things going on in my head just because of studying, just because of work. So I feel like that's made me feel kind of a little bit heavy, but just with lots of information. So, and then on the flip side, on this kind of top side of the cloud, is nice and light and fluffy because I'm so excited to see what I can do with all of this information, trying to put everything together in what I do for a living. And I would say that my cloud is moving very fast through the sky because of the wind, and I think that kind of is me of I'm very excited actually, and it's just kind of, it can be a little bit scary at times because it feels like there's just a lot happening, but I'm looking forward to it. So I would say my cloud is just very fluffy at the moment, so I will go with that.
Thank you so much. Hearing a lot of kind of differences in the way that we're feeling, and also a lot of similarities with the kind of like the storm and the clouds. There's a lot of clouds going on. So yeah, really hearing all of that. Let's start with our first question. How has lockdown been?
Well, lockdown has been definitely a journey for me. I feel like I've learned a lot about who I am as a person. It's given me clarity that I've never had a chance to have because life is so busy as it is, when you kind of had no choice but to stay still and kind of sit with your thoughts for a moment. Like, it gave me that moment to really go, okay, what's going on in my life? And it actually gave me a chance to ask myself, am I truly happy? And the true answer to that was no, because I kind of felt like I wasn't at the place in my life that I was particularly happy with. I kind of have given myself a lot of almost targets that I've set myself that I've wanted to achieve in life, and having that moment in the lockdown to go, I haven't had a chance to achieve a lot of the things I've set out to achieve. And then it gave me the moment to go, okay, what's next? What's next for me in terms of my life? And so the start of lockdown, I was very kind of down to, it was difficult, definitely, I have to say, without the kind of socializing, being stuck in my head a lot, which was helpful at points and at times, but also was very kind of, can be incredibly negative. And I found myself at times just probably being a lot lower than I needed to be, but that was just a response to the situation we were in. But so then kind of, I think about 2-3 months in, I was like, right, okay, now I need to sort myself out. I need to get a lot more productive here. Because my theatre company obviously stopped during that time. Theatre wasn't really happening. So work-wise, I did have about 2-3 months of actually not having anything to do. And then the other business which I have, which is more sports and mental health kind of focused, we were able to do quite a bit of work. And then I said, it's the mental health side of it which really stuck out for me. And one of the goals I gave myself when I was a kid, the two things I said was, I want to be a therapist and I want to have my own theatre company. And I ticked off the theatre company, but then I let the therapist side of it kind of go. And I went, no, I think it's time for me to start my training. And I got into to do my interview, got through, met my kind of tutors, and it's changed my entire life, I would have to say. I feel like I have finally got to the point that I envisioned my life to be at, which might sound a bit strange, but I've got my focus again. I've got my goals. I've got my purpose. And just in the short time of training so far, because I'm only in my first year and it's a 4-year course, and I'm excited. And that's not a word I would have used to describe myself at any point, really, probably in the good last couple of years, let alone lockdown. So that excitement is what's really pushing me through. And I just got to remind myself that lockdown is still there, still happening. The effects is going to last a long time, but at least I know I've got that drive, which has given me faith and hope in myself to go, no, you'll make it, you're fine, and you're good enough. And that's what I've really learned. As you're training, you're kind of going through psychotherapy sessions yourself as a means to be trained. And it really highlighted this negative side of me, this kind of self-critical role that I had created. And it, in theory, all it was doing was trying to protect me, because it was actually very, very scared of me feeling low, feeling like I've failed as such. So it was actually a defense mechanism, which was almost trying to stop me from doing something. So there was less of a risk of me failing and feeling bad in the long run. And it took me a long time to realize, oh, hold on, actually it's on my side. So I had to kind of rename it as such and learn to work together with that, because it was a safety kind of feature that I had to try to protect myself. So that at first was a big hindrance, and it nearly stopped me from training as such, going, oh, do you think you can do this? I'm not sure you can do this. Or do you really think you can handle that on top of everything? Or you get on it a little bit, maybe no one's going to take you seriously. And it was those voices that I had to fight, and then I learned to work with it. So I would like to think, because of the situation we're in and because of my course, that I've actually got rid of, not, I wouldn't say got rid of that hindrance, but I definitely have learned to accept it and work with it. So I'm in far of a better place because of it now, because I'm such more aware of what it's doing and the behaviours and the triggers and such.
My lockdown was different than everyone's because, as I mentioned, I'm in finance business. So obviously what we experienced was loss of jobs, uncertainty about the paying rents, and a lot of people was very scared what will happen next. I dreamt about the moment for myself. I couldn't have this moment of relaxation or just like whole day for myself to have my thoughts. And this was, to be honest, for me, I'm not feeling like a hero or something. I have no choice. People call me and said, look, I've lost job. My husband lost job. We are stuck with like £10 on my bank account. Help us. So I sat all days and tried to help people fill the forms, guide them. But this was pressure because I knew that they don't have money for food even. So this was too much for one person. This caused like very big impact on my health because I didn't sleep. I took phones from 6 in the morning to 11 in the night. I lost vision in one of my eyes because of, too much sitting near the computer. So this was scary. This was like overwhelming. I shout for help in my street. So we have like chat with neighbors. And I said, look, I'm doing the little parcels of food. And my neighbors just drop me food to my doorsteps. I collect the food and I draw to the most vulnerable members of community. So, and the work was never ending, comparing to the fact that I have severe autistic child at home who stay at home. He didn't go to the school. So we have one son, 15 years old, with all lessons, everything online. Big job with helping others financially, and severe autistic child. So this was quite horrible. But I'm glad that my husband support me, because he took a lot of job, like homeworks of children on his shoulders. And now I'm feeling glad that I was able to help people. I was able to cope with everything. And we're feeling positive, because at least our son is at school, autistic one. So his well-being is the most important for whole family, because he's not verbal. He's like 11 years old. So he wants something, but he can't express it. So basically we experienced tantrums at home. So it was quite tough for whole family. I had the scary moments when I almost feel that I can't bear anymore. I want to cry. I want to go out and, shout. But I think these moments, these low moments, give me opportunity to understand myself more, and understand my limits. Okay, you can't do more. This is your limit. That's it. So my lesson is that I know how to say no now, and now we are trying to just enjoy every minute, every good cup of tea or sunshine. So we're going to park, we're trying to be active, and take every day like gift, I would rather say.
That sounded extremely pressured. Is your eye better now, or did that come back right? Or
I can't see on my right eye at all.
oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm waiting for treatment. But thank you very much for asking.
No, that's a really tough deal. That was a very tough deal. So hats off to you for surviving it all, really, and having, I think, possibly more of a positive outlook than I might have. Everybody says when you're retired, what are you going to do with yourself? Well, I had plenty of projects, plenty of ideas, plenty of things that now I was going to have whole days to myself, weeks to myself. But in actual fact, it didn't go like that at all. I think, first of all, because I wasn't going out to work every day, I wasn't seeing anybody, I wasn't meeting anybody, I had no regular interaction. It was incredibly sporadic, which meant I spent lots of days on my own, which seemed initially to be very long. And therefore I became much more reliant on either phone calls or messaging and sort of social media to try and find out where people were, because most of my friends, they're either working or they're busy for some reason, one reason or another. So I did feel quite much more isolated than I expected to be. And I think the worst thing of all has been, because I live on my own, is no physical contact, no hugs, not even a hand to hold. I've found, and that lack of somebody to really say what you truly feel about something, whether it's, isn't that a beautiful sunset, or actually this is really, really, well, just so awful. How long is it going to last? What's going to happen? You don't have anybody particularly there on the spot to talk that through with. So, and I found myself just spending days, sometimes, much to my embarrassment and part shame, just playing games on my phone. It was so easy. Put Radio 4 on, lie on the bed, play this game till it almost became addictive. And suddenly hours would pass and I've done nothing. What happened to all my projects and all these grand ideas? Yeah, I think for me, I've learnt over all these years that I do need to bear in mind that my creativity is important. It's vital for my mental well-being. Doing what I've found helps in the past, which is to utilise my creative outlets, whether that be writing, which I've done a lot more of, and the photography, which I love as well, doing macro, looking at close-ups of flowers and really looking and appreciating colour and shape. And joining online groups has been helpful. Another community photo project has been really good at helping me to do something different, try something new. And I think that's been probably my strongest way of getting through. I think, though, the thing that does get in the way is that emptiness of nobody around and no routine. You know, when you get up and go to work, usually you've got a set time to be somewhere and set things to do. And suddenly when your time's your own, the whole day's empty and you think, oh, it doesn't matter. But then, and there's nobody to say, get on with it. There's nobody for me to say, well, do you think I should do this now or should I leave it till next week? So, yeah, that's been more of my reality.
I know, Margaret, you had shared with me a website that you find supportive as well. Do you want to share that with us?
It's actually called the Blurt Foundation, and the website is Blurt It Out, which sounds like 3 words, but they're all together, blurtitout.org. And it's very, very targeted at people who suffer depression, however mild or however severe, and also related issues such as anxiety, which often go hand in hand and which have been extremely prevalent during lockdown. They do lots of things. I mean, one of the things I like is if you just sign up, if you've got an email address, you get an email every Saturday. And even though you know that email is going to thousands of people, it's personalised, it's got your name on, and everywhere a name comes, it feels like it's yours. And I like that because that feels like that's come for me. And to be honest, something like 8 times out of 10, it always seems to be very appropriate. But they have loads of free resources as well. So there are things to read, there are books, there are articles, the stuff you can download for free. And I was thinking about people who don't have technology, who don't have the access to do that. That's, you know, I can hear somebody saying, well, that's fine if you've got internet access. Used to be able to ask the library to help you, but I don't know when library's going to open. But I'm sure you would have a friend somewhere who would be willing to look for you and help you, and then maybe print off some of the things that you would find interesting or helpful. It also gives good advice if you're trying to work and hold down a job, or if you want to go back to work. It's great also if you're supporting somebody, if you personally may not suffer, but if you know you've got friends or family, it gives you some clues when you're feeling, I just don't know what to do or say, which is quite common. It's not technical, it's not cliche, it's just basic common sense a lot of the time. And you can pick up things about self-care as well, which is something that we often really miss out and think no. You know, I think it's brilliant that even in this podcast, you know, we've got someone who can say, I've learnt to say no.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really good advice. And I also just want to take this opportunity just to mention a couple of places you can call or text. So you can always call Samaritans on 116 123 or text shout on 85258. And these are free, anonymous resources, and they're always open. So for anyone listening and for anyone who's part of this podcast, those resources are always open for you all. Okay, so I wonder if you could share with me a time when you felt positive or connected or loved in the last 12 months.
A moment I felt incredibly kind of connected was, again, I'm going to be talking about my course because that's been pretty much the most important thing which has been happening to me over the last couple of months. But it was a piece of work which was based on me. I kind of put my hand up as a protagonist, so I got to work on a theme that I kind of wanted to work on. And so during that kind of these negative aspects that I had kind of was brought onto a stage, and I was able to kind of confront them and understand when kind of they came to existence. I was able to pinpoint the exact moment in my life, the exact memory where that thought process was then born, and then this kind of idea of me not being good enough as such kind of was generated from that, and then this critical self which came out as a defense mechanism to try to stop me ever feeling like that again. But so I went through this whole kind of process, and it was very full on. You kind of go through all sorts of emotions while you're doing it. There's times of extreme kind of joy. There's times where you're confronting that issue, and it's so, like, I remember almost being paralyzed at one point going through one of the scenes, because I was just like, I'm confronting my almost biggest, deepest, darkest issue that I have. And afterwards, kind of completed the scenes, kind of figured out the birth of the situation, and tried to find we call it kind of role training. So you learn to kind of, you learn from it, you learn from the insight, and then you go back to like a recent moment where you felt that kind of negative aspect, and then you can kind of challenge that situation with what you've learned. And it was just afterwards with the group, because with psychodrama, you can do one-to-one, but it's mostly group psychotherapy. And these people are the people in my course. I haven't had a chance to know them for particularly a long time, but because the work was so intense and their support was so, they were so willing to support. And I would say to my, like, I don't think I've ever experienced that level of support. I mean, I've had support from my family and as such, but almost a room of strangers that you've never met before, giving you 100% of their attention, and you know that they've got your back. And I've never felt that connection with people before. And afterwards, it was like I've known these people for my whole entire life. It was a moment in which everyone in that room was so connected, and it's just now a feeling that I've hold on to, and it's a feeling that I want to keep having. And it's strange because I'm an actor, but I'm not the most confident person, like, socially. So I would be the one which had a tendency of having a few too many drinks before I had the confidence to even talk to somebody, sort of thing. And just the confidence I got from that moment, and I felt so alive. I felt understood. I didn't feel like I was being ridiculed in any sense for sharing something so personal. I didn't feel like, that was a bit embarrassing, I shouldn't have done that. It was the strength, the warmth I had. Like, it was almost, as a way to picture it was like a group hug. And obviously with lockdown, that was something that a lot of people, and I know myself, didn't really have. So even though it wasn't a real hug, it felt like a hug, and I've held onto that connection, and I'm going to be pushing more for that connection, and I will make more of an effort to try to make those connections, be vulnerable, and to share. That's one thing I got from lockdown. There's no point what I learned for myself is there's no point keeping everything to myself and then just living life almost on my own. So I want to now go, no, I've dealt with that during lockdown in a way, and I'm going to make an effort with it. So that connection's pushed me forward.
So basically last year was like very low, but there was like such a good moments when we experienced that someone thought about us. So we stuck at home. Our little Eric was like bored to the limits. We are lucky enough to have the garden, and he has the swing in the garden, everything like to make his time like fun. But of course, after like 2 months, 3 months, he was bored even with all this fun stuff. And our friends found like playground, and they deliver to us like gift. So this was amazing, because I could do that, but you know, you are stuck in your box, and sometimes you can't find a way to help yourself almost. So this was like such a moment when not only me but whole family recognized that we have very good friends who really cares about us, and you have almost feeling like, you know, they always there for you. So this was good. And another one, if I may, As I mentioned, we're helping vulnerable members of the community. And back in June last year, one single mom received the keys to the property, council property. She has very sick son, and the property was not in very good condition. And I said, okay, look, don't worry, we'll think about what can we do. And I spread the word around my friends. Look, guys, maybe you can just look what we can do. And I was amazed because our friends call their friends, because everyone was at home not working, so they said, okay, we're sitting at home, let's spend the time better. And together with another organization, we organized like 30 gentlemen. They came to the property and they renovate whole property like on very good level. And this was like achievement, because this was like too beautiful to be true. And in crisis, when everyone have like very little money, they sit at home, no jobs, they still was able to show that they can suffer the time, and they just show up and they renovate the property for sick boy. And this was like, for me, like humanity will survive, we're still there.
I mentioned earlier, I have some friends in South Africa who are like my family, and they have 2 children, Zoe and Zachary. Zoe's 9 and I'm her godmother, because I worked with her mum when she was here, and they went back to South Africa. But she's an amazing child, and she actually spoke, which I think for a 9-year-old is very tolerant and patient, with her old godmother for 2 hours via FaceTime. And neither of us were bored with each other's company or sitting there sort of thinking, what do I say now? Fortunately, we overlap on a love of nature and animals. And of course, South Africa has just a few of those that are quite quite gorgeous. I love elephants. So when I go over and visit them, and I've been so fortunate to go more or less annually for 10, 12 years, we have great times together. But I have missed that input, and not having children of my own. It's so fascinating to see the world from a child's point of view, especially in a different country, and how she rolls with the flow, because she's had some friends move away, and her cousins moved in January back to New Zealand, so that was a big loss as well. But she takes it somehow in her stride, and oh well, I can chat to them for a couple of hours on Facebook, and I think, yep, you definitely can, Zoe. So for me, it's that sense of freshness and looking through a child's eyes at how things are. That's not to say she doesn't care or doesn't get upset sometimes, but it's just been, if I'm really struggling, I sort of message her mum and say, can I have a play date with Zoe, please? And then that puts me back in perspective.
That's lovely, really lovely to hear. So what advice do you have for other people who might be struggling with loneliness, isolation?
When we had like normal times, let's say, we always wait to the weekend to just have these moments of not working and have time with ourselves, I believe. I think during the lockdown, of course, we feel, everyone, even in the families, we feel a little bit alone and sad sometimes. I believe that we need to try, I know it's hard, but we need to try to find positive side of every situation we are in. So if I'm, for example, I love reading books, so I dream about the time to read the books. I don't have this time right now, but we can almost choose if we be describing situation as a gift or prison. So it's hard, but we can try to look positive on each side of the situation. So of course, if we're very, very lonely, my recommendation is maybe try to look around. Maybe there is the older neighbor, she can't go to the shop and buy the bread. Maybe help others on the street. And I believe my way of helping others is to save myself.
I think first and foremost is to acknowledge and not pretend that you don't feel what you feel. I think that's really important. So if you feel bad, if you feel low, if you feel lonely, then say, yes, I do. And, that is also part of the human makeup at times. I think contact somebody if possible, a friend, a relative, and there was the Samaritans number given out. They can be tremendously helpful if you really find there isn't anybody around to talk to. They will always give you some time. I think for me, one of the things I used to find helpful was to if I say keep a diary or a journal, that sounds so formal. Just get a notebook, treat yourself to a nice notebook and write something in it every day, an observation, how you feel, and nobody else needs to see it. It doesn't matter if you swear, if you can't spell, just write and get it off your chest. It's surprising when you look back how you've recorded it. It's not quite as you remember, I find. Sometimes I think, I've never been as bad as this, and then I look back and think, oh yeah, I was worse. So it helps keep things in proportion, and it also reminds us of the nice things, the good things, and being gentle. If you feel rough, you feel rough. If you had a cold, you have a cold, so you'd be nice to yourself and you'd say, I'll have a nice hot drink. So why don't you have a hot drink if you're just feeling low and lonely? It's always about cutting yourself some slack, I think, is the answer. And it's too easy to be self-critical, and there's plenty of people queuing up out there, so remind yourself you're a lovely person.
I think something that I know helped me was to be curious, I would say, and to develop that kind of inner child of yourself, and kind of going on what was just talked about. It's when you can see through those inner child eyes, like you learn to just see things in a different perspective. You allow yourself to open up to more experiences. And I think for me, when I'm most alive is when I'm most curious, and that's when I'm more likely to make connections with other people and to seek those connections, because I'm actually interested to what the other person's saying or how they might look at things. Allowing yourself to have empathy for yourself, first of all, to kind of understand how you feel when you feel, accept that is how you're feeling at the moment, but then showing that empathy for people around you, for your community, for people on your road, for your neighbor. It doesn't always have to go to such an extreme that you're trying to save the whole world or trying to save the whole country as such. It could be the people which are the closest to you, family members, and try to find that drive that you have in yourself. And it could be from different outlets. It could be from a creative outlet. It could be from doing fitness, actually. Funnily enough, something that we do a lot is the fitness classes, online fitness classes. When we had them in person. And the people which would go into those particular in-person connections were a lot of people who were retired or were made furloughed. So not only did they didn't really have connections with people, as such, and then they were coming in and they had no idea who each other were, and they just really kind of latched onto each other. They were checking in on each other, how they were getting on with their little fitness journey, motivating each other. And they're people who had no idea who anyone was. And I think, again, that's going with the whole keeping it curious, keeping it playful, be that inner child, and just, like, we've been so restricted, don't put any more restrictions on yourself.
I think this will probably be my last question. What traits do you appreciate in yourself?
The traits that I can see without somebody else reminding me are that I think first and foremost my sense of humour, which gets me through a lot of situations, not quite everything, but a lot. A sense of humour goes a long way sometimes in difficult situations. I can be quite sensitive. I can pick up when things perhaps are harder for somebody than you might think. And I persevere. I've had to, having depression from 17 and trying to keep on finding out, going back through things, not in an obsessive way, but trying to understand myself better so that I can make better relationships and kind of give more back. I think perseverance is something that it's almost a family trait. We call it stubbornness in the rest of my family, but it's perseverance for me, and probably generosity and loyalty. If I've said I'll do something, I do it. And if I can help, I will. So that's plenty to be going on with, I think.
I would say my kind of trait on myself that I really love or like value is actually me as a person. I think I've been in such a long time in the long state of me being very negative to myself, not particularly liking myself, and then using that as almost as a weapon to beat myself down. And I think through the course and through lockdown, just in general, like the situation and learning about myself as a person, like I've learned about my own sense of humor as well. And I've learned my determination, the way that my outlook of life, and I'm very playful, and I've learned to appreciate my brain, just the way that I see things as such, and the kind of stories I create in my head. And I can make myself laugh like there's no tomorrow. I can make other people laugh as well, and I'm very receptive to other people. I've just learned to just appreciate all those different elements of me. And through the work that I've been doing, studying on my course to train, I've learned to actually finally say that I love myself. And I have never been able to say that line to myself before. In fact, like, there were times where I couldn't cope with who I was as a person. Like, I didn't like myself. And now I've learned to appreciate all those different traits. And I try not classing them as like negative traits or positive traits. They're just aspects of me. And even when something's not being particularly functional, everything is try to get me to survive or be the person that I am as such. So I've learned to go, okay, this is me and I love me. And yeah, that's put me in a good place, and I've never been there before.
It's a hard question. I mentioned before that it's not always good to be with myself all day. In lockdown, we are forced to be with ourselves all day. And yeah, I mentioned before as well that I know my limits now, so I recognize that it's okay to say, okay, I can't do it. It's more than I can bear. And yeah, lockdown changed a lot in my perspective about myself, and I'm okay with stuff now, so I can take every day like it is. So yeah, I like myself because of my humbles. So I'm humble, person, and this is the word I can describe myself.
And you're very kind and generous by the sounds of it, just from what you've been saying. I mean, both of you have, got lots of things to be proud of, I think.
Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate your words because you have very interesting points in this conversation, and to be honest, I don't know you a lot, but I took a lot of words to my heart, so yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, so what we'll do, we're going to finish with a quick mindfulness exercise which I'll lead. You can Gently close your eyes, or maybe just lower your gaze. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast, please join in. And we're going to take a moment just to connect with our bodies. So we'll do a very quick body scan. So we're going to scan the body all the way from the top of the head down to the tips of the toes. And we're just noticing for any sensations. So as if you've got a hula hoop, scanning all the way down your body. And when you reach your toes, just moving that hula hoop all the way back up, scanning for any sensations. And once you get back to the top, we're just going to hone in on the places of our body which are touching maybe the chair. So maybe you're noticing the parts of your body which are touching the chair, maybe your back, maybe your legs. Maybe you can feel your feet touching the floor. And just really grounding ourselves in this moment. And we'll take a few deep breaths. Let's take 3 deep breaths together. So inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth with a sigh. So when you're ready, nice big inhale, the biggest inhale you've taken all day. And exhale. And 2 more, nice big inhale through the nose. And 1 last inhale. And exhale. Good. And when you're ready, just allow your breath to come back to its natural flow. So allowing the breath to breathe by itself. And maybe you can notice the sensation as the breath moves in and as the breath moves out. You might notice that your belly is filling up with air as you inhale and contracting as you exhale. Maybe you notice your shoulders moving up as you inhale and down as you exhale. Maybe you can feel your whole chest expanding, or maybe even your back or the sides of your chest expanding and contracting. And just noticing that every breath is coming in so naturally without any effort. And just for a moment, we're going to bring our hands to our heart center. So just placing one hand over the other, over your heart space. And just taking a moment to tune in to our heart space. And our heart space is slightly different to our physical heart. So the idea is that we have a physical heart and we also have a spiritual heart. And that spiritual heart is in our chest, but in the center of our chest. So just bringing our awareness to that space. And this is the space where we love and where we can be loved. This is the space where compassion comes from. This is the space where gratitude comes from. And this is the space where we can do our introspection from. So just taking a few moments just to focus in on that space, on that energy of love, of compassion, of connectedness. And when you're ready, you can drop your hands down and just imagine a bubble of golden light around you. So this is a protective light, a bubble being drawn around you. And imagining everyone else in this space having a bubble being drawn around them as well. So everyone here recording this podcast, everyone listening, all of our loved ones, family, friends, all over the world, being encased in this bubble of golden light. And feeling that no matter how far away we are from one another, we are always connected through this energy. We're always connected through the experience of life itself. And I invite you to take just a moment here to pledge one thing that you'll do in the next 24 hours to support your mental health. Something you'll do in the near future to look after yourself. Whether it's taking a bath, going for a walk, even just taking a few mindful breaths. Just spend a moment thinking about something that you'll do in the next 24 hours. And when you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and your toes and gently, slowly open your eyes. Okay, lovely. I invite you all to share that one thing that you're going to do to support your mental health in the next 24 hours.
I'm going to have some fun and play a game on my phone.
I will try to take some deep breath because this was lovely and give instant relaxation. So I will try to repeat that.
And I am going to have fun too. And I am going to make sure that I am going to schedule in a kind of group call with my friends tomorrow and just have a catch up. So focus on me and them.
Thank you so much to all of you for taking the time out to be part of our project Reflections on Resilience. It's been amazing to hear all of your reflections and really, really grateful to be able to share this space with you. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you guys, and both of you, you are inspiration. So I'm glad to be with you in this podcast.